So, what if the very thing you've been avoiding, pressure, restriction, limitations, is actually the sacred test that will set you free? Saturn is the middle path between duality that we must reconcile within ourselves. And this is the mystery of Saturn. It strips away the false to reveal the part of you that cannot be taken away. But before I begin this Saturn's journey to reveal the deeper mysteries of the black cube and the black sun, welcome to Starwell Astrology. My name is Shari. I'm a Western tropical astrologer with a very special interest in shadow work, esoteric mysticism, and astrotheology. If this is of any interest to you, or if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and like. Also, I'd like to remind you that I do offer a free shadow work workshop every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you are interested, just send an email to starwellastro@gmail.com. I do also offer private natal chart readings and private one-on-one shadow work sessions. If you're interested, my information is below. My intention is to explain these deep esoteric teachings in a way that feels clear and grounded, but also not to water down this information, but to make these truths more accessible. I don't claim to have it all figured out. I just try to share what I've learned in a way that feels real and useful and true, but also without losing the sacredness of this inner path. So I want to start out by discussing the glyph of Saturn because it is very significant in what it represents about Saturn. The glyph of Saturn has a cross and a sickle. And the cross, as we might know in my previous videos, represent the cross of matter. It reveals karma, incarnation, and the weight of form. The vertical line of the cross represents spirit and the horizontal matter. And at the intersection, the soul becomes crucified. This is the meeting point for eternity. And this intersection point is also physically represented in the body as the heart. So Saturn represents the essence of esoteric initiation. The soul enters to reconcile the tension between heaven and earth and spirit and matter, and it transmutes karma through the heart and the mind to remember its true source. So the cross, in more detail, represents the descent of spirit into density. The body becomes the crucible of learning. It's the temporary tomb or the sacred temple, depending on your internal state. This also represents karmic contracts of the soul and its ledger of unintegrated lifetimes that has crystallized into our current life experiences. So the black cube of Saturn is the form and fixation we are up against or bound into. And this is sacred geometry, symbolically showing that we may feel imprisoned when we're lost in our forgetfulness, but once awakened through the many tests and trials of Saturn, we remember our divinity and the structure that once entombed us unfolds. The horizontal axis represents matter, time, and the ego, and it stretches across space and pulls consciousness into polarity and external identifications. Our reality is dual. We are always experiencing reality in oppositions, up and down, in and out, good and bad. The vertical axis represents spirit, which is eternity and truth. It rises through the central column, which is the sushumna in the spine. And the spinal column, by the way, is ruled by Saturn. And this is connecting the soul to the monad and the higher realms. So when these two axes meet, they form a cross. And this is the cosmic point of incarnation, where spirit becomes crucified into form. And this intersection represents Saturn's gate of human embodiment. So the Vitruvian man with arms outstretched horizontally, as well as the body upright vertically, is a visual symbol of this exact metaphysical truth. The soul stretched between heaven and earth, spirit and flesh, and eternity and time. This is the initiation into duality. The cross is the unfolded cube, the hidden architecture of liberation encoded within form itself. Saturn becomes a path of alchemical incarnation as we awaken the black sun, which is the inner sun in the center of the cross inside the cube of form. So back to Saturn's glyph, since that's what we're talking about. The cross on top in this glyph marks the soul's courageous agreement to be tested by time. We're not meant to be broken by Saturn. And although he's feared by many, he really wants to make us whole, to integrate all the fragmented aspects of the human psyche. The cross is on top of the sickle, and this symbolizes the soul's descent into matter. From the point of view of astrology, it's understood that our incarnation is a conscious agreement to take form within the constraints of time and karma. In other words, we are under the rulership of the archetype of Saturn as long as we exist in this third dimension. So beneath the cross is the sickle or the scythe, and it is shaped like a downturned crescent moon. And this represents the harvest. It also represents time, and it also shows the soul's reaping. So this sickle is shaped like the waning crescent moon, and it represents the hidden half of Saturn's mystery. And this half is not so much about form, it's about consequences. This is the cause and effect we call karma. It is the blade of reckoning and the emotional harvest of time. So what we've sown in shadow is brought to light, and this is meant to shape us. The waning crescent moon, shaped like the sickle, is the first initiation of Saturn. She governs the tides of emotions and memory, preparing the soul not just to incarnate into time, but to face the deepest test through our feelings, because the moon represents our emotional body. So where Saturn tests us through pressure, the moon tests us through pain. And this pain comes through what we call emotional wounds. And by healing it, we till the inner soil so Saturn can build a structure that lasts, and also build a structure on a more solid foundation. So the moon, symbolically representing the sickle, governs the cyclical time and inherited memory. And the sickle is the tool used to harvest what has ripened through our soul's cycles, whether through lessons, wisdom, or some kind of loss. We reap what we have sown because it's karmic consequences. But it is not always consciously that we recognize our lessons or even our rewards. But either way, Saturn does this lawfully because it's the planet of morality as well as law. So though it may feel like Saturn is punishing us because he is the planet that says no, or may block us, or may limit us from moving forward. It's not really punishment, but it feels like it. But his real job is to reveal what must be healed, faced, confronted, but ultimately reconciled within ourselves, even if it feels harsh. So the sickle cuts cleanly, dividing the wheat from the chaff. And this blade is what teaches discernment, what must be released and what must be refined. And the harvest process takes time, attention, and humility. And we learn that not all loss means failure. Some of this can be the orchestration of a higher outcome or a higher purpose. In the myth, Saturn as Kronos wields the sickle, not to punish, but to liberate. And Though often seen as the Grim Reaper, his blade is karmic mercy. He severs what cannot serve your highest timeline, even if it hurts. And what feels like a loss is often sacred pruning, the death of the false self. Saturn's blade is clean and it severs illusion from truth. So, based on Saturn's glyph, the cross marks our descent into form, and it also represents the soul choosing to incarnate and embody karma. And the sickle reveals the harvest through lessons, losses, and wisdom, provided we learn the lessons we're being taught by Saturn. So together, they map the soul's path of descent and return through purification. The crescent moon, which looks like the sickle, it rules the emotional body. The heart is what allows us to feel our emotions, and the heart begins to form and beat in the embryo before the brain is even formed. And this supports the idea that the emotional body and the soul's karmic imprint arrives before cognitive awareness. The moon is a carrier of past life residue. It's our unconscious memories, our emotional filters, and it's also our ancestral bloodline. And it governs not just our surface emotions, but also the deeper inherited patterning that the soul brings into this carnation. In many mystery traditions, the soul enters the fetus through the heart, not the brain. So the heart becomes the seat of the soul. And the moon is the veil through which the soul descends. So the moon is the soul's memory imprinted in the first heartbeat of the fetal heart. And before the brain could even think, the heart was already feeling, already remembering. So the heart is the first organ formed in the womb. It's the soul's original throne and the place where remembrance begins. So the moon shows us where we have forgotten or what's also unconscious. And it's also our emotional reverberations of the karmic past. And it's often veiled in our unconscious patterns and projections. Saturn shows us where we must remember and where we're tested, and what we must refine in ourselves, and what we must allow to be made whole through time and healing through our experiences. Since this remembrance cannot come through the mind alone in order to heal fully, it must pass through the heart. For feeling is the soul's language, and the emotion is the bridge between karma and liberation. This is why deep shadow work is essential, because emotional healing is the soul's way home. In deep hermetic and esoteric mysticism, Saturn is not the punisher, he's the gatekeeper of sacred timing. And the glyph teaches that no ascension occurs without incarnation, and also that you do not escape the sickle. We harvest our soul through it. And this is what makes Saturn the guardian of the Black Sun. Now, the Black Sun is hidden inside the cube that represents structure and matter. And the glyph is the key to unfolding the cube into the cross. Saturn is the guardian of the Black Sun and the initiatory force that seals the inner flame inside the density of matter, and then tests the soul until it is ready to ignite the flame from within. The Black Sun is the crucified light. It's the crucified light of our soul that carries the memory of who we truly are. And it has been buried beneath who we have become in form. What is the Black Sun that is hidden inside the cube? When the Black Sun awakens, it's the soul Niger. It's the first stage of the alchemical process known as the nigredo or the blackening. This symbolizes the death of the ego or the dissolution of the false self. It is a descent into the shadow, into the confusion, and into the inner darkness. And we call this the dark night of the soul, even though we know it's not one night, it's a long period of time. But one that is necessary for transmutation. And so the black sun is the unseen source, and it's a hidden womb-like potential where all light is latent and waiting to be reborn. So this is the womb of alchemy where the soul incubates in darkness before illumination. The black light, I've done a video on this. You can check this out for more information. But it's the true womb of alchemy. It's pre-form, it's pre-light, but it's the pure potential where all creation gestates. The Vesica Pisces is a sacred aperture of that wound. It's the gateway where the unmanifested becomes manifest. The moon, though often mistaken as the original womb, is the soul's reflective matrix, the emotional echo chamber that prepares the soul to remember. But it's from the black light that all memory form and feelings first emerged. The black sun is commonly referred to in many esoteric circles. So I'll try to break this down briefly to bring more clarity to what the black sun really is. The Saturnian black sun is incarnational. It initiates the soul through external form, linear time, personal experiences, and it is the crucible of karma. It manifests through the limitations and laws of matter, and this is meant to ground the soul into embodiment. Once awakened, it activates the alchemical black sun, which is the soul Niger, which is internal. This inner sun initiates the soul through the dark night of the soul, and where the false self and the unprocessed shadows are burned away in the fires of emotional truth. This is often a painful process, but it is also deeply liberating. And the practice of shadow work, as I share it in my workshop, my free weekly workshop, is the activation of this inner alchemical sun. It moves through the purging of the emotional wounds and karmic imprints that we unconsciously recreate through our daily reactions, our relationships, and our choices. A lot of times, this is not even something we are conscious of because we're living in this automatic feedback loop. But once we become conscious enough of this, we can start to heal the emotional wounds that's recreating the experiences. So both are black suns, and they're part of the same alchemical unfolding. They both enter the soul's journey from different gateways. One through the body and time, which I speak about as Saturn and the black cube, and the other is through the alchemical process of psycho-spiritual healing and facing the darkness. Together, they initiate the great work of integration. So Saturn buries the soul in the black cube so that the alchemical black sun may be awakened within. And the black sun, once lit, burns away illusion, meaning the ego and distortions and the false identity, until only the inner sun remains. And this is the radiant stillness of the monad itself. This is the sun behind the sun, and it's the third and most hidden light, a frequency tied to the divine core of all beings. This is unity consciousness. This is oneness. This is also Christ consciousness. It is not accessed through striving or intellect, but only through the holy process of ascension. And this only happens when the soul walks the inner middle path back to itself. So few reach this place, but it is the birthright of every soul where we meet God face to face. Should we choose to surrender, descend, and then rise again. So the cube can be seen as the sacred geometry of incarnation. The black cube is the structure of form, body, time, karma, gravity. It is the geometry of Saturn, the boundary maker and the lawgiver. And it's also spirit entering density through this cube, but it forgets itself within it. So the cube is the container of the soul's test. And therefore, the cube is seen as the tomb and the womb. From the esoteric lens, the cube represents the illusion of separation, the crystallized karma of unprocessed shadow, and the sacrifice of divine memory in order to experience incarnation. So, this is not punishment, it's a pressure we need for awakening. We must awaken within the structure of limitations and not bypass it. So, when the cube unfolds, it becomes a cross and it has 6 faces laid flat. When the cross is flattened, it's the expanded form of the cube and it represents awakening within limitations. And it's the soul stretching outward into multidimensional awareness. And this is why the cross is the crucible, the place where the identity dies, the heart is pierced, and the black sun within begins to rise. And the cross is the geometry of sacrifice, but also of release. It's the cube opened into consciousness. Once the black cube is unfolded, the shadow is seen. Once the cross has done its inner work through surrender and suffering, the inner sun ignites. And this is the Christ itself. This is the monad's still point. And it's the radiant clarity that can only emerge after darkness has been faced. So these steps cannot be bypassed. The black cube, which is Saturn, must apply pressure so that it unfolds into the cross. And when the cross is open, the fire must burn. Only then does the true sun rise within. So to unfold the cube is to awaken within karma, and it is the act of transforming fate into freedom, structure into soul, and density into light. This is not bypassing karma. It is entering it, metabolizing it, and reordering it from within. And it's not rejecting the cross. It's about becoming the space where it resolves itself. This path is slow and sacred, and it's not linear. It requires shadow work, facing the unprocessed emotional wounding. And then it also requires that we endure this, even if it's uncomfortable. And we have to do this without collapsing. When we do the work to face our emotional wounds, we allow ourselves to feel our feelings in a way that has never been safely felt. This allows us to align in the middle path by integrating horizontally and vertically all at once. So the cube becomes the cross and the cross becomes the gate. And through that gate, we access the inner sun and can rise, meaning ascend. So once the cube is unfolded into the cross, the soul has metabolized the emotional wounds, signified as the sickle. And Saturn becomes the gate. It no longer feels like the prison. And only then can the soul access the outer planets, which is Uranus, our divine mind and freedom, as well as we can embody Neptune, which is divine love and remembrance. And we can surrender to Pluto, and that allows us to totally transform and resurrect from within. This is the alchemical ladder from cube to cross to liberation. So in sacred geometry and esotericism, the cube is both the prison and the temple. And when unconscious, it imprisons the soul in limitation. But when consciously engaged with, it becomes the structure that allows spiritual mastery. So when we say the black sun is hidden inside the cube, we mean that the source of our true light is hidden within matter, karma, and limitation. And the soul's light is blackened by amnesia, trauma, and ego, but it's not lost. It's dormant. It's compressed and waiting to be alchemized. And to awaken this light, we must enter the cube consciously and embrace the shadow to begin the great work. So this is what we're doing when we do shadow work. We're descending into the cube to retrieve the black sun, not to escape matter, but to purify and reanimate it with spiritual awareness. So in astrotheology, Saturnian black sun represents the subterranean solar current. It's the light that appears dead or hidden during the long winter nights. In astrology, this is symbolized as the sun's annual descent below the equator, especially when it comes to Capricorn season and Aquarius. Saturn traditionally rules these signs. In this phase, the sun is no longer visible for the longer hours of the day. And this, of course, is in the northern hemisphere. The sun in the tomb buried under the horizon. And symbolically, it rules the time of withdrawal, death, and inner gestation. This is the black sun of form. It's the light buried within. The black cube of matter is not yet luminous. It's potential waiting to be redeemed. This symbolizes the alchemical terms that is called the nigredo, the blackening and the dissolution phase where the ego dies and the light is obscured and the soul meets the shadow of incarnation. Saturn rules the spine because Saturn governs our structure, endurance, time, karma, boundaries, discipline. And in our physical body, it rules our bones, our teeth, our joints, our connective tissues, and yes, the spine, which is the central pillar or axis of incarnation. The spine is the central vertical column through which the Kundalini arises, traveling up from the root to the crown. In esoteric anatomy, the spine is the axis mundi, the world axis. It's the cosmic ladder between earth and heaven, spirit and matter. And Saturn is the gateway of duality and time, and it sits at the threshold. His role is to test whether the soul is ready to move up this ladder, Jacob's ladder, the Sushumna channel, which is the tree of life. Saturn's middle path is represented by the Kundalini energy that rises through the spinal column, only through the middle channel, the Sushumna. This is the straight and narrow gate. So Saturn is the guardian of the middle path, the one who governs the spinal gate, where all opposites are reconciled, and the soul rises to meet the oversoul. So the spine it's also a staff. It's a ladder, Jacob's ladder. It's a tree of life. It's the pillar, which is the axis mundi, and it's also a staff, which is Hermes caduceus. So Saturn holds the key to each gate. He's the Lord of the Rings. He is the outer planetary threshold, and his black cube encodes the geometry of incarnation, limitation, and containment. And the spine, as Saturn's scepter, reflects his role as the guardian of the threshold between lower and higher chakras, between the ego and the soul, and between illusion and integration. You don't rise up the axis until you descend into the base and face what lies hidden there. In your body, Saturn guards and tests. Your nervous system runs through that spinal column. So until you embody your shadow at the base of the spine, you cannot rise into the crown where the sun, behind the sun, reveals the face of God. So the black sun in the cube is the sacred light buried inside your shadow. You must descend to remember it. And through Saturn, you are sealed. And through the heart, you are freed. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget that I do offer free shadow workshop every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to join, send an email to starwellastro@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video. And thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye.